Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 37th part of What If Deku had Psychokinesis. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 37, The Storm. I want this beast in chains. Now. Ma'am. If you'll just. This monster attacked my son. Look at him. He's traumatized. Ma'am. The nurses have told me that it's assault. Attempted murder. Ma'am, please rest right. Why is this monster not chained up? You're the principal. Either do it now. Or else I'll. Ma'am. The school principal, a man that looked more rat than man, cut in desperately. While I understand you are upset, I will not tolerate threats against a student. The woman looked mortified as she hugged her son from behind in his seat. Threats against your students? Look at what that horned freak did to my darling. The woman screeched as she pointed at the other student in the room. Eri, while her uniform was a little torn in places, looked none the worse for wear. Unlike the woman's son, who had tissue shoved up his bloodied nose, a swollen lip, and not one but two black eyes. Rolling her eyes, Eri placed her elbow onto the chair's armrest and leaned to the side. I defended myself, you know. The woman sneered, you lying little. Enough. The principal slammed a hand down on his desk. Until both children have their parents here, I expect everyone to wait and behave. Now, Mrs., the principal winced at his failed pronunciation of the foreign name. The woman narrowed her eyes. Right. The principal desperately wished to sneak a drink of his scotch from his secret drawer in his desk. He also hoped that it was Eri's father that showed up for this emergency meeting. He was the most understanding of the BZZ. The intercom on the principal's desk buzzed. With a press of a button, his secretary's voice came through. Yeah, she's on her way up now, sir. She didn't wait for anyone to show her to your office. She said she knew the way. All right. Thank you, Ms. Nico. The door to the office swung open and the principal almost opened the desk and downed the whole bottle of scotch right then and there. The first person to enter the room was a little boy with messy brown hair, bright green eyes, and the pinkest cheeks you'd ever seen if you never met his mother, Big Sis. Big Sis. You're in trouble again, aren't you? Eri groaned as her little brother Toshi latched onto her arm and jumped about. Ugh, it's not that big of a deal. Toshi titled his head to the side. That's not what Kuda said when we ran into him at the entrance. Eri rubbed her brow. Of course, Kuda would still be here waiting. But don't worry. Aunt Stabby is here to save you. Looking back, Eri raised an eyebrow at the other person still standing in the doorway. There, wearing her best business suit, a skirt that, in Eri's opinion, was way too short and tight to be considered professional, and a pair of rectangular, semi-rimmed glasses that she didn't need but only wore because they went so perfectly with the suit, stood Toga Himiko. Eyes, scanning the room, with her right cybernetic eye glowing a soft yellow just because she could. Hello, Principal Splinter. It's good to see you again. Himiko was smiling. And only 3 people in the room knew what that meant. Who is this? The angry growled. I was expecting the girl's parents. You don't sound like this, brats. Himiko's eye twitched. Mother. Eri looked up at Himiko, praying that her fairy godmother didn't slit the woman's throat out of annoyance. Himiko though kept a calm and cheerful exterior. Toshi, why don't you go sit with Ms. Nikovras? You can show her that new trick you learned you could do with your quirk, while I and Mrs. cut in. While I and Mrs. Himiko paused as she waited for someone to fill in just who she was talking to. The principal fumbled over the name again, as did Eri when she tried to step in. My God, can people in this country not say a simple name? While I and Mrs. Vladimirovich Anastasia, Himiko pronounced the woman's name flawlessly, deal with this incident, which I'm sure is all just a big misunderstanding. Toshi looked at Himiko, wide-eyed, then at Anastasia. Are going to. Himiko shook her head and ushered Toshi out, closing the door and whispering a soft, maybe. Himiko closed the door and turned to look at the other woman. So I understand our kids got into a little. Himiko looked over at the boy. Scrape? The principal started to talk but was cut off. You still haven't said who you are. I want that monster's parents here. Not some hussy nanny. Hussy? Really? Himiko deadpanned before sighing. Okay, just so we can put a pin in this, I am Eri's aunt, godmother, second mother by her own parents, and most importantly for this moment, I am her legal guardian in the event her parents are unable to be with her. Ha! Looks like you won't be proving anything, liar, the boy spoke, muffled with his clogged nose. Himiko blinked and looked down at Eri. What's that about? Eri groaned. He said I was lying about who my parents were. Really now? The mother put her hand on her son's shoulder. Nicholas confronted this brat on her lying about her parents, something she's been doing for some time, since the start of the school year at least, when we moved here. She claims her mother and father are the heroes Deku in Uravity, an obvious lie, but when my brave boy tried to make the class see her deception, she attacked him. Himiko raised an eyebrow, and he knew this was a lie because... Anastasia pointed at Eri. I explained to my dear son that a child must look like their parents. She would have to have green or brown hair or eyes, at the very least. And her horn is nothing like the quirks of those heroes. Plus her age. She's too old to be their daughter. Himiko looked over at Principal Splinter, who shrugged his shoulders. So an argument about that led to the two having a fight? Eri pointed at Nicholas. He got mad and attacked M-. Shut your lying mouth, brat. You've already been caught in one lie. Getting caught in two will only make your punishment worse. Principal Splinter coughed hard. Ma'am. As a parent of 4 boys, I can understand your desire to protect your child, however, you are not the one handing out punishments here. That is the matter for the school. Don't you know who I am? Who my husband is? What that makes me and my son? I very much can punish this girl if I see fit. Who are you exactly? Himiko asked, keeping calm, much to Eri's and the principal's nervousness. My husband is the head diplomat from Russia here to serve in the embassy. That makes us Russian citizens. This girl's attack on my dear boy was an attack that, if not dealt with properly, would mean I would have to call my guards and have her detained for crimes against Russian citizens. Yeah, that's not how that works, I think, Himiko said. The fact that you're married to an ambassador doesn't give you any legal authority here. Diplomatic immunity, maybe, but that's it. As for if Eri's lying about defending herself, how can you be sure? Red in the face, the woman pointed at Eri. Look at her, not a scratch on that smug face. The only way that could be is if she snuck up on my son and attacked him from behind. Himiko looked down at Eri, who looked back. I healed. Yeah, thought so. Wah. Eri's quirk heals her if she gets hurt. It's a subconscious thing, Himiko explained. So she used her quirk without a... Ma'am, the principal cut in, our country's laws on quirks are very similar. A quirk that is constantly affecting its own body is not one that can be punished for use. Now, if she had used her quirk against someone. Which I didn't, I just beat him up, Eri grumbled. That would be another matter. Himiko patted Eri's shoulder. We can go back and forth over this all day. Is there any video footage of the fight? Phone video, maybe? I know kids love to record fights and post them online. I'm sure that will help settle measures. We have security footage. It's being collected right now. She openly admitted to using her quirk. Video footage won't do anything to exonerate her. I'm tired of these delaying tactics, and I want this girl expelled and arrested now. That's the only thing you should be doing. Anastasia screeched, pointing with a sharp nail at the principal before her hand disappeared into her purse to pull out a small key fob, of some kind, with a large button in the middle, and if you don't, I will. That's a panic button. Himiko said, eyeing the device. I guess being the wife of an ambassador, it makes sense you have one. But as I said, you don't have any legal authority here, lady. You don't get to just summon some cops to do your dirty work. I have a personal professional hero as a bodyguard. One press and he'll be here to detain this monster and bring her to the Russian embassy for incarceration, Anastasia said, trying to sound ominous. Eri looked between the angry mother. the suddenly very nervous Nicholas, who had paled at the mention of security footage, and Himiko. This woman was pushing more buttons than the one she was holding. Himiko may have matured some as she had gotten older, though you would need to put that in large quotation marks. Before things could escalate further, there was a knock on the door, and a round man in a security vest came in. "Sir, we have the footage ready." "Good. Good, could you pull it up on my screen so everyone can watch?" The man nodded and walked over to the principal's desk, quickly pulled up the video. Finally, Anastasia muttered. The video showed Eri and Nicholas at lunch surrounded by a group of kids. The two were obviously arguing. Between them, Kuta was trying to keep the two separated. As the video went on, Kuta was beginning to get some space between the two, pulling Eri back with him, who didn't look all that eager to leave, but was nonetheless moving back. Then Nicholas shoved Kuta out of the way and got into Eri's face. Screaming. Eri flipped him off. When she started to turn towards Kuta, her feet snagged on something. She lost her balance and swung her arms around to steady herself. Nicholas shoved her hard and sent her tumbling to the ground. He then dove after her as she was suddenly stuck to the ground, and began wailing on her with his fists. Hammering away. Eri ripped herself free of whatever was holding her, ripping up her uniform as she did so, and jammed her knee into Nicholas' groin. The boy rolled to the side, grabbing himself. Eri pressed her knees into his chest, and unlike his hammer blow, delivered 4 straight jabs into his face. Nicholas was motionless as Eri got up. The room was silent. For several seconds. "What's the boy's quirk?" Himiko asked. A chilling frost on her voice. Her smile gone. Shadow trap. Any shadow he or his own shadow touches, he can turn extremely sticky. Principal Splinter answered, a drop of sweat rolling down his whiskers. Himiko reached down and rewound the video back to where Eri suddenly lost her balance, tapping the screen where it looked like her shoes had suddenly become stuck in her own shadow. She then eyed Eri's torn-up uniform. Torn where she had hit the ground. "Mrs. Vladimirovich, remind me again what you said about being upset about quirks being used?" Click. Anastasia pressed her thumb down so hard on the panic button that it was a small wonder the plastic didn't shatter. "The girl comes with me. This is doctored footage. I will not let anyone hurt my boy and get away with it. She's coming with me, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop it." She was raving, face red and near frothing at the mouth. Click. 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 The woman's other hand was gripping her son's shoulder so tight that he was now squirming in pain. This alarmed Eri. "Hey, you're hurting him. Shut your mouth. I'm going to have you thrown into a gulag. Do you hear M-?" The door to the room swung open, and the woman's personal hero bodyguard rushed in. "Have no fear. Because grape juice is hirii, what the actual hell?" Minoru looked around, first at his clients and then at Eri and Himiko. Hi? Eri, Toga. Oh ow. Mamau." The boy was still squirming and Minoru quickly walked over and unclamped the woman's hand from his shoulder. "Easy there, ma'am. You were accidentally. Arrest that little monster at once." Minoru looked completely lost. What? Mineta. Toga, Minoru repeated, the two looking at each other as they tried to understand what was now happening. "What are you and the squirt doing here?" "Hi kid." Eri waved. Kids got into a little scrape, Himiko pointed at the boy, and quirks got thrown around a bit. "Oh crud," Minoru looked Eri over. "He didn't do the sticky feet trick, did he?" "Yup." Eri and Himiko said. Eri lifted up her feet, showing the torn-up shoes. "Kid, I taught you the trick in case you needed to run away from a kidnapper or something." Minoru groaned. Sorry, Mr. Grape." "So," Himiko began, not bothering to hide the ice in her voice, "you work for this woman now?" She said you were her personal pro-hero. And that she was going to have you arrest Eri to take her to the Russian embassy and throw into a gulag." Minoru looked back at Anastasia, pointed at her, then at himself. "That's not my job, at all." I've been asked to help look after her and her son, yeah. But I technically work for the embassy and the ambassador while he's in the country at the behest of the Japanese government. Well, me and a group of other heroes technically. I was the one who gave her that distress button. The kid has one too. Figured it would be good for emergencies. Why are you just talking? Do your job. Grab the little bitch, and let's go. Himiko cleared her throat. No one is taking Eri anywhere. Anastasia snarled and pointed at her. Grape juice. Beat the shot out of that one, then grab the little girl. Minoru looked completely flummoxed at Anastasia before turning over at Nicholas. Kid, why'd you go and pick a fight, to begin with? He spoke to the boy calmly. He needed answers and wasn't getting anywhere with the mother. She kept saying she was Deku and Uravati's daughter. Mom said that was impossible, so I called her a liar. We yelled, and I got mad. Minoru shook his head sadly. You know you can't just go around doing that to people you think aren't telling the truth. Nicholas nodded sadly. Especially when they aren't lying. Nicholas's eyes went wide while Anastasia's mouth closed with a snap. Clearly, neither of you know who these two are. This, Minoru pointed at Eri, is Midoriya Eri, the eldest daughter of the number 1 heroes. And this, Minoru pointed at Himiko while talking directly to the mother, is Toga Himiko, also known as Carmilla. One of the other famous or infamous heroes of Green Tea Rescue. One of the 3 founding members. The other 2 are the 2 big names whose daughter you just kinda threatened. And this one, she's her aunt and a lot more. She's known as the next R-rated hero but also the Bloody Queen of Discourse. BL Bloody Queen? Do you want to know why she has those names? Anastasia nodded. You don't want to know why she has those names. Anastasia shook her head. But she's not on the hero boards. Himiko stepped forward. The crap I do isn't something you advertise. Nicholas looked at Eri, but she's too old to be their kid? That's what Mom said. I'm adopted. I was like 9 or something when they took me in a year after they graduated from UA. Oh, Anastasia chirped, all color leaving her face. So you really are their kid? Yup. Oh, cool. There was silence as Eri blinked rapidly. Cool? Nicholas shrugged. Is it not cool? I mean, yeah, most of the time. You're taking this pretty well. Better than your mom, at least. She's totally dead to the world now, Eri thought to herself. Himiko looked at the 2. You 2 kids alright with just letting this go? I mean, I am, but Eri looked at the boy and the damage she did. She might have gone a little overboard. She's gotten some training under her belt. He didn't. Noticing Eri looking at him, Nicholas pointed at his face. It's not a big deal. As long as you're not lying, I'm fine. Himiko nodded. Sounds like we could just sweep this under the rug as kids being stupid. What do you say? That's got my vote, Minoru added. Nicholas is a good kid. But he's 13 and stupid. He got his face smashed. Let him deal with that for the next week or so. Principal Splinter looked over the group and then focused on the kids. It would save me on some paperwork. He focused on the kids. Is this done? Yes, sir, they answered. Go. Minoru quickly got the mother and son out of the room and waved goodbye to Himiko and Eri, reminding them of the annual class get-together. You going to bring that blonde chick I saw you hanging on? Himiko asked, laughing at the memory of the pictures shared on the class's message board. Minoru's smile and peace sign made it look like he had won the lottery. Nah, we broke up like a week ago. It was a wild couple of weeks, but we were just looking for some fun. I think she's dating some baseball star now. Or was it a movie star? Himiko remembered some of the other images he had shared. You broke up with a woman with a rack like that? Are you and Seiya? Oh my god, as Himiko spoke, Minoru flipped out his phone and showed her a picture of his new girlfriend. How tall is Dash? A little over 3 meters. 6 arms? Minoru grinned widely, and 6 very talented hands. Damn those abs. She works out a lot. She's in MMA. How are you not squashed yet? Minoru smirked before he left with the Vladimiroviches. Himiko then sent Eri off to collect her brother, leaving herself and the principal alone in the office. Thank you for not killing anyone. I wouldn't have done that for something like this. She was all bluster, and kids do dumb things all the time. Thank you for not stabbing her. You're welcome, Himiko conceded with a laugh. Oh, by the way. How are the quadruplets? I heard they're finally coming out of their shells. Principal Splinter groaned, but with a smile, they're fine, thank you for asking. Much more active now, they play ninja all day and love to sneak around and try to scare me. And they're growing fast too. I swear someone mixed in some toxic waste or something with all the pizza they eat. The change is just crazy. Himiko laughed, God, if that isn't the truth. Toshi was a little monster during the terrible twos. Then he started breathing fire. Eri mentioned that's not all he does now. A little pyrokinesis mixed in, I hear. Himiko groaned, you up. Splinter pulled out his scotch and 2 glasses, sounds like you need one too. Taking the glass and shot, the 2 clinked glasses and downed their pick-me UPS. Do we get to go see her now? Toshi asked as he rode on Himiko's shoulders, I want to see if she hatches today. Eri groaned, she's not in an egg. Toshi puffed out his cheeks, twin little puffs of pink flame coming out his nose as he did, it's totally an egg. Himiko pointed up at him, watch the fire, kiddo. Ah, I'm not going to set your hair on fire, Aunt Stabby, again. Eri laughed, earning herself a flick on the forehead. Ow. You behave now. I got you off the hook with the school, but you're still fair game with your parents. Eri pouted, which Himiko ignored, and as for you, Spitfire, Toshi laughed at his favorite nickname, your little sister isn't in an egg. It's an incubator. And she's still a long way off from being born. Hatched. Born. It'll be another 5 months. Thoughtfully Eri looked off in the distance, it's still crazy how that all played out with her. Himiko nodded, no kidding. You haven't been thinking about that night at all, have you? Media like to make things seem more dramatic than they actually are. Eri shook her head, it's not a good call to take in the middle of the night when you see on the news the villain hideout your parents are in blew up. Kid, I was there with them. It wasn't a big deal at all. Hell, your mom was ready to go back to work with that shit still sticking out of her. At least until when the medics were pulling the shrapnel from your mom's gut, and that's how she learned she was preggers. Then she let them work while she made sure your dad didn't die from shock. Eri nodded. All in all, considering all the different horrible outcomes that could have happened that night, her mother and little sister made it through with little to no bad side effects. The only bad lasting effects were that her mother had a few new scars on her stomach, but those were par the course at this point. Her mother was a warrior, after all. And the baby would have to stay inside the incubator until its birth. By the time the doctors were sure she was going to be fine, it was too risky to try and reintroduce her into her mother. Hearing her mother talk about it, she was saddened in some ways, since she did have fond memories of carrying Toshi to term, but at the same time, not having to go through all the other bullshit giving birth to a child entailed helped ease that pain. The surprise pregnancy did lead to another few interesting talks that Eri overheard when her parents didn't know she was listening. Her parents knew they had lucked out and had dodged a bullet. This fact brought up the issues of their very active love for each other, family desires, parental responsibilities, and heroic responsibilities. They had started a family very young with Eri, while they were also trying to deal with becoming pros. Then almost immediately after they adopted her, they found out her mother was pregnant with Toshi. Her mother had kept being active as long as she could, perhaps a bit longer than necessary, if the press and maybe a few other friends/heroes were to be believed. Now they were having their second child, and while her mother wasn't going to have to worry about taking time off like the first time, there was still the issue that she had gotten pregnant. What if she got pregnant again? The wounds she got weren't bad enough to make it so she couldn't have another child, though doctors did say that if she wanted another child, it might be wise to have it under more supervised conditions. Did they even want another baby? Her parents were still very young, and now were going to have 3 kids to raise while being very active heroes. Should they take steps to make sure another situation like this didn't happen? Should they take steps to maybe have a 4th child later? Eri remembered a very long conversation her parents had with Tsuyu and how she had taken steps to make sure that when she was ready to have a baby, she would have options in case anything happened to her that could impact her later. While her parents were very attentive as Tsuyu explained everything, the 4th person in the room, Eri recalled, had become super uncomfortable when the idea of future children was brought up. It'd be nice if they finally put a ring on Tsuyu's finger before that day came. Oi, kid, Himiko tapped Eri's shoulder, you got a strange look on your face. Eri looked up at Himiko, oh? Sorry. Just thinking about, stuff. Stuff? We're talking about babies, and you're in dreamland thinking about stuff? Himiko got a devious smile, thinking about what kind of kid you and Kuda could make. Moving a little fast, don't you think? Eri's eye bulged and her face went red, and no, I wasn't. Eri forced herself to calm down. But if Himiko wanted to play that game, she looked up at her, eyes almost judging Himiko. I don't think I'm the one that should be thinking about babies. And really, it's much more rude to keep people waiting. Don't you think? Himiko eyed Eri carefully before pushing her on. Come on, let's go see your little sister before we go home. Toshi giggled, you're just delaying because it's your turn to cook dinner tonight. Himiko neither confirmed nor denied that claim, which made Toshi giggle more. Himiko poked one of Toshi's legs on her shoulder. Keep laughing, kid, and I'll tell your folks that you've been sneaking into my room to play with my knives. Toshi whined, but you said you wouldn't. Spitfire, I lie. A lot. Meanie. You up. Ring. 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 Himiko fumbled for her phone and checked the caller ID. Oh. The clinic just sent a text. Eri groaned, she didn't. Not again. She did. Tore the place up. Luckily the docs have everything anchored down now, but a few nurses found themselves on the ceiling. Toshi laughed, baby Juriko is super strong. Eri laughed, but also winced in sympathy for the doctors and nurses at the clinic. Her baby sister Juriko had developed her quirk while still in gestation. Not a totally uncommon thing, though it was more common for mutation-type quirks and not emitter types like her sister had. Her quirk, Psychokinesis, a name her father had come up with, because of course someone who thought it was important that everyone knew his quirk was psychokinesis and not telekinesis, would come up with a name like that. It was the perfect combo of her mother and father's quirks and let Juriko control the gravity around her with her mind. And recently, Juriko had been using it at random times. Now everyone was ever vigilant and on the lookout for the little green glow that came off her fingers, the telltale sign that things were about to get topsy-turvy. As the 3 walked down the sidewalk, Eri glanced over at Himiko. You don't think mom and dad will be upset with me for the fight, do you? Himiko rubbed her chin, probably not. But you have been letting yourself get riled up pretty easily recently. You'd think going to such a prestigious school like Somei Junior High you wouldn't be getting dragged into so much trouble. Eri growled, either people want to pick a fight with me because my parents are heroes or they want to beat me up because they think I'm lying. I'm so ready to get out of here and into UA already. Right, because UA is going to be much easier than what you're dealing with now. No fighting whatsoever. Himiko deadpanned. Eri rolled her eyes. Kid, you may need to re-evaluate how you view that place. It's not a walk in the park. Believe me, I know firsthand. That's not really fair. All the issues you had there were kinda insane. Himiko nodded with a laugh, true, which is only fitting since I am insane. I did have some pretty, extremely bad days there. Though that wasn't really the school's fault. Eri went quiet, yeah. Some of the stuff you went through was pretty bad. Wasn't it? Himiko sighed, some very bad memories floating to the surface she hadn't thought of in a long while, yeah. There were some fuck-awful days. So, any idea what this is all about? May asked as she scanned over the stack of papers she and everyone else in the principal's office were having to sign. I mean, I've had to sign lawyers' speak papers before, but this, May flipped through the inches of papers, is a whole new level. The room was filled with either the sounds of pens on paper or the soft background noise of the office's TV, droning away about the early morning news. Suyu looked up from her paperwork. You've had to sign stuff like this before, Karo? Mostly non-compete clauses and stuff dealing with copyright and patent infringement. Just making sure that the stuff we make in the support classes are our own ideas and we aren't stealing anything. Does that happen a lot? Suyu asked. You ever hear about corporate espionage? There are corpo spies everywhere looking to get an edge. And if they can't buy you out, then they'll just take it and claim it was their idea in the first place. Hitoshi groaned as he flipped over another page. I'm going to have a carpal tunnel after this. And to answer your question, besides that, this has something to do with Toga since she wants to talk to us, not a damned clue. It would be nice, Hitoshi looked over at the teachers, Nizu, All Might, Aizawa, and Midnight, if we could get a little more information. Midnight smiled, but her voice carried a seriousness to it. You'll find out everything once you've signed the papers and everyone is here. Suyu tapped her chin. I wonder where Toga, Midoriya, and Uraraka are. From his chair, Tenya looked down at his phone's clock. I did see her hurrying towards the school entrance. Perhaps she went to meet with them before coming here. May scratched her head. Why'd she want to do that? Gather some courage, maybe, Shuto offered in his seat next to Tenya. Hitoshi glared at the two. While we're waiting, why aren't you two having to do all this paperwork? Todoroki, Midoriya, Uraraka, and I have already taken care of our paperwork, Tenya replied matter-of-factly. When? A few days ago. A few days. Wait, did you all do this while in Hosa City? Does this have anything to do with the attack you guys survived? Do you already know what this is about? Tenya stiffened, more than usual at least, at his small slip. Fortunately Nizu waved Hitoshi back to the task at hand. Please. Just focus on your work for now. Everything will be explained, and then you'll join. Nizu's phone started ringing. Your classmates. He finished speaking and then looked down at his phone. Something wrong, sir? It's Mr. Toombs. Your head lawyer? Why would he be calling now? Shouldn't all the paperwork be squared away? Nizu shrugged and answered. Hitoshi rubbed his sore wrist. I hate this, he groaned before looking up at the TV, not as much as having to wade through that crowd of reporters outside though. All Might, sir. Yes, young Shinso? What did you do this time? All Might laughed. A fair question. I have no idea. I don't see why they'd be here again. Shuto looked at All Might blankly. You're All Might. Does the press need more of a reason besides that? That got another booming laugh from the hero and a few groans from Aizawa and Midnight. As long as they behave themselves, we can just ignore them, Aizawa said, rubbing his eyes. Suyu flipped through another sheet, nearing the end of the stack. Glancing up from her work and giving her wrist a break, she saw a few familiar faces on the screen. Midoriya? Uraraka? And there's Toga? Why are they? Suyu's thoughts were interrupted. Nizu, blinking rapidly in shock, bolted from his chair. What do you mean the gag order was just rescinded? The alarm in his voice chilled the room. When? Who authorized that? Your calls are getting blocked? Every teacher went stiff as a board while the students were left completely lost. They all almost missed it when May pointed towards the TV screen, confused and alarmed. Toga's on TV. And they're saying stuff about her. Hitoshi looked at Toga, then at the headline flashing across the bottom of the screen, serial killer? What the hell? With everyone quiet, the newsflash came in crystal clear. We interrupt your regular news broadcast to bring you a breaking story. We come to you live at UA High School, where wanted serial killer Toga Himiko has been confirmed to be in attendance. We will continue to bring you up-to-date news on this developing story. We now go live to our reporter on the scene. Hitoshi and Suyu were looking at the screen in complete and utter bewilderment, neither able to do anything but stare. Mei looked back and forth from the TV, her friends, noting that Shuto and Tenya were shocked but not like Hitoshi and Tsuyu, and then at the teachers. Shocked but also mad. Nizu listened to the call for a few more seconds. Find out what's going on. I need answers. Please, hurry. He then hung up. This is on all the news stations. Go now. He pointed at the three teachers who were already heading for the door. Midnight, Aizawa, you focus on Toga. All Might, I want you to handle the press. We need to get a handle on this now before dash. Toga. A new voice came through the TV speakers, and Nizu knew immediately that any chance of getting a clean handle on the sudden crisis was thoroughly dead. I finally found you, you monster. Midnight almost tripped on her feet, whipping around to look at the screen. Oh my god, that's Saito. Then phones began to ring. Teachers' phones and then the students'. Shuto snapped out of his shock and looked at the incoming texts, from family and then some from his other classmates wondering what was going on. Our class knows. Tenya looked through his texts, links to news streams and articles. Family and friends, wondering if this was real. It dawned on him that if the parents of students and not just his classmates were seeing this, then they'd, of course, be contacting their children to figure out what was going on. And when they were asked, that would let other students know. This news was going to spread through the school like a wildfire in a matter of minutes. Voices began to carry through the walls. Loud voices. Panicked voices. Forget minutes, it was surging through the school in a matter of seconds. Nizu pointed towards the door. Go. Now. The door crashed open, and the chorus of voices from outside hit the remaining students like a truck. Tenya looked back at his principal, who looked him right in the eye. Mr. Ida, as one's representative, I need you to take your classmates back to your classroom and make sure everyone stays calm. As Toga's classmates, they must be getting a huge brunt of questions, and maybe accusations. I need you, Nizu looked over at Shuto, and you, Mr. Todoroki, to make sure no one starts to panic. Or causes trouble. Tenya and Shuto shared twin looks of understanding. Right now, they were the only ones in the class that would be relatively calmest. They knew about the full story regarding Himiko, so they had the best chance of explaining things now that it was all out in the open. If the class gets this information fast, they should be better prepared for the external trouble that was soon to come. Assuming this would prevent any internal trouble. It was an impressive feat. Even dressed in his bright purple costume and green cape, a color combo that should immediately draw any and all attention, Slidengo didn't have an eye or camera on him. Any other day, and his pride would have been hurt. Today though, he didn't mind at all. Standing at the back edge of the crowd, Slidengo whistled to himself while at his side Chitos flipped through her phone and laughed. It's everywhere now. Every station is jumping on this story like sharks smelling blood. Hee hee, she chuckled to herself, not a bad analogy, considering the stars of this little show. Ma'am, how long until the courts realized their systems were hacked? Slidengo was here to make sure of only one thing. That his commander, Curious, faced no problems here. So that meant he needed to be aware of any potential dangers. Chitos waved him off. How long until they get the gag order reimposed? An hour maybe. How long until they figure out their security was breached? If Chikazoku did everything right, never. A glitch in the system during a software update affected their phones, preventing them from being able to take any calls, and that flagged a few orders as expired by mistake. That's all they'll find, and we'll be in the clear. Add a few anonymous tips about the story, and you have instant news coverage. Chitos looked at the reporters, all ready to tear this story apart and get the biggest headline. That boy's confronting her now, Slidengo observed, he's really making a scene. Though that Midoriya boy is with her. Chitos's smile thinned. Out of everything, that was the biggest issue that she had no real control over. She knew she had to play it safe around Izuku. Rikia now had a marked interest in the young man. She had been told that she was not to involve him in her scheme. A ghosted phone number was the most she was going to get away with. Fortunately, Saito was locked squarely onto Himiko, and Curious had no plans to directly involve Izuku. She had her sights set higher. And if everything went according to plan, her action might help push Izuku away from the heroes and into more welcoming arms. Saito, my little man, it's time you get to vent that righteous anger. My perfect match to light this fire. Burn bright and burn fast. Help me char one of this society's great pillars. Ma'am, just for my peace of mind, but you don't plan on confronting any of the heroes directly, right? Chito sighed sadly. Unfortunately, I cannot. Strictly forbidden. I'll have to rely on some of my soldiers to take the reins on this interview. They have my questions at the very least. Izuku blinked in stunned silence as a boy, who looked to be about the same age as himself, burst through the crowd of reporters and started screaming at Himiko. 1 second before he, Ochako, and Himiko had been about to hurry back inside the school after finding out that someone had texted her outside using a phone number and contact info that was made to look like his own. And now this was happening. When he called her a monster, that jolted him from his stupor. Hold on a second. Izuku put his hands up and moved to put himself between this boy and Himiko. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. As Izuku tried to calm things down, he noticed, disturbingly, that all the cameras the reporters had were pointing right at them. He was also aware that in his pocket, his phone was vibrating and chiming away as it got call after call and text after text. We were late for class, so we need to dash. The boy snarled and pointed at Himiko. She's not going anywhere. I won't let her escape again. Escape? Look, I'm sure you're dash. Izuku, stop. Hearing Himiko speak up, Izuku turned to look behind himself. Ochako had an arm protectively around Himiko, looking just as confused and worried as he was. She also looked tense, reminding Izuku of how she would get before some of their sparring matches. Ochako was ready for a fight. Himiko, though, didn't look anything like he was used to seeing. Timid, defeated. It was like someone had sucked the life out of her. That's Saito. Ochako's eyes bulged while Izuku thought for sure the ground had opened up underneath his feet. Saito? The guy that toga. Izuku then began to puzzle together what was going on. The picture he was coming up with was not good. 1. Himiko had been lured outside of UA by someone using his name. 2. There were almost as many reporters now as there had been at the start of school when before there hadn't been. They had been waiting. 3. The boy that Himiko had stabbed and drank blood from was with the reporters. For, all of this was happening only a few days after the confrontation between UA and Tartarus. Tartarus, who were not happy with how things had ended and that knew he was a friend of Himiko's. 5. If Saito was here, and the reporters were here, and Himiko had been made the center of attention, then whatever court order that had been keeping people quiet was either gone or had been broken. Run! Get Toga out of here. Now! I don't know what that monster has told you about herself, but I know everything she's done. Saito started to walk towards Himiko. I've been following you, Toga. Ever since I saw you in the sports festival, you've been the only thing I could think about. You don't get to leave a trail of bodies behind you and think you can just walk away from that. People know who you are. They talk about you, Stain's other followers. They have every one of your crimes documented. Pictures of the people you've killed. Sato's face twisted, disgust dripping from his voice, video of the perverse things you've done just to get some blood. Saito held up a stack of papers neither Izuku nor Ochako had noticed. He threw them onto the ground in front of the three, scattering them around their feet. They were pictures. Some were from cameras, while others were screenshots of videos. Bodies cut open. Mutilated corpses. Pictures of Himiko covered in blood. A knife in hand. Stills from videos of Himiko as she bared herself to lure in a group of men. You're pretty famous on the dark web, Toga. Either as Stain's lapdog or his whore. Izuku sucked in a breath and kicked the papers away. Uraraka. Grab Toga. We're getting out of here. Dash. She's not going anywhere until she answers for what she did to me. Saito moved to block the way to the main entrance. You might think you know what she is, but you can't ignore the proof in front of you. This isn't the way to do this. I understand what dash. You understand? Who the hell are you? More people she's tricked into believing she's a person? Look at those pictures and tell me what kind of person does that to someone else. Saito grabbed at his shirt and pulled it down, popping some of his school uniform's buttons as he did. Even without fully opening his shirt, Izuku, Ochako, Himiko, and the cameras zooming in on him could see the scar that ran from his collar and down his chest, resembling a horrific welding together of skin instead of a wound several years healed. I thought she was a classmate. And she did this to me. She's a fucking monster. A deranged freak. She didn't just cut me open. You have no idea. She needed your blood. Sato's eyes, wide and intense, shifted away from Himiko to Ochako. What did you say? Ochako kept her arms around Himiko, hating how she couldn't feel the other girl's warmth. She had simply stopped functioning. It was obvious that seeing Saito again, her first victim, had shaken her to her core. Himiko wasn't heartless nor unfeeling. At least not anymore. She had been forced to confront that she wasn't the monster she believed herself to be, at least not fully, back in Hosa City. Now, that newly found humanity was getting forced to confront her first and maybe greatest sin. Thugs, villains, gangsters, predators, Himiko had killed so many of them. Saito, though, had been innocent. And now he was here, with an army of reporters to drag Himiko into the open, to crucify her in front of the world. Ochako could see he thought he knew everything, but he didn't. The way he was acting, he couldn't have known. Toga needed your blood. Toga's quirk makes it so that she needs blood, but her parents stopped her. They starved her for years until she wasn't able to stop herself. What? Please listen, Izuku said. Most people are only aware of how a quirk can affect a body when it's used, but there are some quirks that can affect a person's biology. Make them need things in order to live or even just function. That's what Toga's quirk is like. We need food and water. Izuku glanced back at Himiko. Well, she needs blood too. She was only a little kid when her family forced her into quirk suppression therapy. They tried to ignore her needs, until If her parents knew what she was, they should have smothered her in her fucking crib. Saito seethed. She's a fucking monster, and they should have killed her. Izuku looked at Saito in shock. You can't be. You don't get to blame a quirk for this. Saito then looked at Izuku and Ochako. Focused right on them. You looked at those photos and didn't even bat an eye. You know what she is. You know, and you're trying to defend her? Make excuses? What the fuck is wrong with you? Aren't you two supposed to be learning to be heroes? She's killed people. Ochako cut in. She was manipulated by Stain. He took advantage of her and used her. I can't defend the things Toga has done, but neither can you or anyone ignore that she's a victim too. UA is trying to help her. Heal her from everything that. Victim? Saito snapped, his rage bubbling over. She's not a victim. I'm a victim. Sato's breathing came out in ragged snarls. UA's helping her? Heroes are helping her while they come to visit my family and threaten us. Tell my parents to stop asking questions. Tell me to be quiet or else. Izuku and Ochako glanced at each other, neither sure what to make of that. It didn't make sense. She's a monster. A freak. And yet she's given everything after she's taken so much from me. Where's the justice in that? How can anyone claim to be a hero and allow this to happen? No hero would let this happen. You're twisted. Fakes. Saito raved and yelled, stepping closer and closer towards them, and Izuku began to worry that the boy was going to do something drastic. With him blocking the way back to the school entrance, Izuku needed to think of a way for them to escape. No good was going to come staying here, but Izuku was not going to do anything to Saito either. He was not going to force their way through him. If Uraraka can float us, I can get us inside and. I'm sorry. Izuku froze. Ochako stopped too. Himiko's voice was quiet. Pitiful. But even over everything, they heard her. I'm sorry for what I did to you. You're sorry? Sato's teeth ground together. After everybody you've killed. Everyone you've hurt, that's all you can say? Do you really think that comes close to making up for your crimes? Sorry? That just saying that will absolve you of your crimes? Saito pointed at the scattered pictures. Look at everything you did. You're a killer, and you enjoyed it. And now you're going to stand there and try and apologize for all of this? Izuku watched Himiko look down at the scattered pictures before she shook her head. I never said I was sorry for this. For surviving. She then looked back at Saito. I said I was sorry for what I did to you. Saito's eyes narrowed. What? It shouldn't have been you, Saito. That day, it was still the middle of class. No one was supposed to be in the halls. I thought I had a clear escape. I could feel myself breaking. The mask the quirk counselors my parents hired to put on me was crumbling away. I knew something was about to happen, I just didn't know what. But then, there you were. Alone and scuffed up from a fight. I snapped. Then you should have run for the roof. At least then, a lot of people wouldn't be dead. Himiko didn't flinch or react at all to Saito. She just stood still, even as Ochako urged her to come with her and away from the crowd and Saito. Ochako was focused on Himiko, but Izuku, his eyes narrowed, and for the briefest moment, red lines of jagged and unstable energy flared up on the skin of his knuckles and arm as One for All surged. Don't you dare say dash. That is enough of this. All Might leaped down from above and landed between the reporters and the four students. His sudden landing and serious tone he directed at the crowd made more than a few back up. Leaving his hands up, All Might motioned for the crowd to step back. They had been getting closer and closer to the four as the argument had kept going. The volatile feelings from Saito, the claustrophobic wall of people, Izuku and Ochako standing firm against waves of anger, and finally Himiko, a bundle of potential chaos and violence if cornered. This was a recipe for disaster. So All Might moved to defuse the situation as quickly as possible. Create some space and redirect some attention. It's All Might. All Might, can we get a statement? All Might, was UA aware of dash? All Might, why were the records dash? All Might's sudden landing jolted Izuku out of his anger. Hearing someone tell a friend of his to kill themselves, so much like Katsuki had done to him, had hit a surprisingly raw nerve. But Izuku was already moving on, letting the power in his arm fade away as if it had never been there. Saito wasn't like Katsuki was. He wasn't a bully being cruel, he was a victim lashing out. Izuku couldn't forget that. No matter how much he hated what he was saying or what he was doing to Himiko. This is done, the monotone voice of Aizawa cut in over the crowd as she walked up behind Saito. Kid, you need to let my students by. Saito whirled. What? No. She's not getting away. You dash. Wait, hey HUI. Saito turned back and was alarmed as Midnight had put her arms around Himiko and was now getting her to move. Where are you taking her? You can't. Kid, calm down. You're only going to make things worse. Aizawa put a hand on Saito's shoulder, trying to pull him away. Seeing Himiko lead away and now getting pulled away himself, Saito snapped and screamed, "Let go of me." Chitose laughed as she watched the live feed. All Might's sudden appearance. She couldn't have asked for a better hero to come out. Now the real show was about to begin, and it was even going to star the country's leading hero, which was just the icing on top. Lowering her phone, she motioned towards a woman in a navy blue jacket with a mic for NHA News. Smiling as the female reporter hurried off and pushed through the crowd with her camera crew right behind her. Looks like she's going to get the All Might interview after all. Chitose was a little jealous that one of her subordinates was going to get to ask the important questions, but orders were orders. Speaking of orders, Chitose's smile narrowed as she looked back at her feed, which still had Saito on the screen. Even as more and more cameras focused on All Might, a few still had Saito front and center. He had done his job splendidly, causing a big enough scene with Himiko to get UA to send out a response, but she would be lying if she wasn't a little relieved that he and the other kids were now getting separated by the other two teachers. Or, more specifically, Saito and Izuku. Once Saito had tossed those pictures in front of the three, a very nice touch Chitose had thought. She had thought for sure the boy and girl would have left Himiko then and there. The pictures were gruesome and grisly. Children like Izuku should have been so sickened by them he'd run away from the monster at his side. He hadn't. Neither he nor that other girl had moved away or even seemed surprised by the pictures and accusations. That had caught her attention. Then Izuku started talking. Talking about quirks and how they affect people. An understanding that would make him rather popular with her people, and herself, if not for the situation. Izuku knew about Himiko. He knew and was defending her. He was also putting himself directly between Saito, who was getting much angrier, and Himiko. He was directly involving himself in the situation, and it was making Chitose very nervous. There was also the other thing he had said, Yue's helping her? Chitose had no idea what that meant, but at least now the opening act was over, and she didn't have to worry Izuku any. Let go of me. All Might held his hands up, motioning for space and calm. I understand you all have questions, however considering what happened last time Yue asks that you disperse until a proper forum can be prepared for your questions. Please, these are children and All Might. Since when does Yue condone the training for killers? While some reporters have begun to fall back, one had pushed through aggressively, her mic and camera crew zeroes in on All Might. This is a hero school, correct? Or are you confirming that hero schools are a front for the Hero Safety Commission to find individuals for their kill squads? What? The question had come out of nowhere, and All Might found he didn't have an immediate answer. The reporters around the woman were just as stunned, but they quickly refocused and made sure the woman and All Might were in the frame. There are many reports of members of the Hero Commission coming in direct contact with certain students, either before or just after they enroll in hero schools. Some are then given private educations for a time. That's an absurd notion. All Might shook his head. The very idea. Are you trying to claim the Hero Safety Commission is training assassins themselves, or? The reporter turned, as did her camera, and focused on Himiko, by proxy. Absolutely not. All Might crossed his arms, a large X to cement his denial. We are a school. We do not, nor does the Hero Safety Commission train children to become killers for the state. Even ones that are such naturals? All Might bit back a growl. I believe I was crystal clear. Then how do you explain Lady Nagant? Nagant? What does she? Young miss, do you know who you are even speaking of? Lady Nagant was a hero, who the moment she graduated, the Hero Safety Commission quickly moved to make her one of the public faces of the hero community. She was very popular for many years. She was also someone that the Hero Safety Commission was observed meeting with while she was still in junior high. Miss. Interestingly enough, during the time she was active, a large number of villains and other corrupt individuals suddenly began to wind up missing or dead. Some were even people with no criminal records but were often labeled as troublemakers or instigators by the news and other media outlets that worked for the Hero Safety Commission. A few of the reporters were looking back and forth between All Might and the woman giving him an impromptu interview. The aggressive questioning was almost unheard of when dealing with All Might. Hosts and reporters would do almost anything to get a chance at an interview, and friendly questions just made the possibility of getting picked that much better. Sure, that meant mostly softball questions, but having an All Might interview on your resume automatically meant a pay raise. What this woman was doing had never happened before. She was going for the throat, and All Might was thrown off his game. Ma'am, if I could say something. And those people that wound up dead, you have to dig deep to find any kind of medical records or autopsy reports. But if you look, you'll find that they all died by gunshot wounds. High-caliber wounds. Let me make one thing clear. You are throwing around a lot of social media theories but have not laid out a shred of proof. Do you have documentation? Anything to back up your claims? All Might, while not used to this type of aggression from a reporter, was used to being in high-stress situations. It might have taken him a moment to recompose himself, But he wasn't on his back foot anymore. As for Tsutsumi Kana, she is in Tartarus for killing another hero. Yes. Allegedly, she killed a fellow hero in an argument. Normally these kinds of cases are open to the public, since the government wants the public to see that they treat all citizens, heroes and civilians, the same. And yet for Lady Nagant, it was a closed-door trial, and then all the records were sealed. A convenient way to dispose of someone, don't you think? And after losing such a great tool, I'm sure the Hero Safety Commission is just chomping at the bit at Toga Himiko. A person with a transformation quirk that seems to specialize in avoiding detection. A perfect Black Ops soldier or infiltrator to carry out their illegal murd dash. Enough! Whatever your agenda is, it's clearly with the Hero Safety Commission, and you are just using this horrendous media assault against a child to further your message. You come here, the same day that young boy shows up, and don't expect me to think you're using this for your own ends? All Might was mad, and in only a few lines, had turned the tables on the reporter who was now the one on the back foot. Now under All Might's harsh eye, the reporter needed something to distract him. Everyone, for that matter. As the people around her, originally enraptured by her questions, were now turning on her and siding with the angry giant. She needed something now. Let go of me. The reporter twisted her head at the noise and saw her chance. Oh my god. That UA teacher is assaulting Toga Himiko's victim. Cameras and heads turned. The scream of a boy and the reporter was enough to make everyone forget about her. They all turned, just in time to see Aizawa grab a hold of both of Sato's arms as he tried to pull him back as carefully as he could. Hey! Is Eraserhead actually trying to arrest that kid? Eraserhead, why are you manhandling that boy? Are you accusing him of anything? Should a victim not be allowed to confront their assailant? Aizawa, startled by the sudden attention and accusation, loosened his grip on Saito, who, seeing his chance, yanked himself free and lunged for Himiko. Izuku, startled to see the boy running towards them, stepped up and wrapped his arms around Saito, keeping him restrained as he kept himself between the enraged boy and Himiko. Please, this isn't the answer. Shut up. I have every right. After what she did to me, I deserve this. I earned this by surviving. She's a monster. You fakes need to get out of my way. Behind him, police pushed through the crowd. Before their orders had been to simply make sure things remained orderly. Now though, a very angry dog was barking in their ears to get Saito out of there and to disperse the crowd. It was pretty clear some higher-ups were pissed off. Someone had screwed up, and it was better to just listen to the new voice than risk wondering if his bark was worse than his bite. Putting their hands on the boy, they tried to help separate him and Izuku. Doing everything they could to make sure neither he nor Izuku was hurt. Cameras were on them now, and one wrong mood would change everything. Get off me! Saito ripped an arm free and pressed his freed hand into Izuku's face. There was a hiss like a opened and shaken up soda bottle before a blast of purple gas hit Izuku point blank, causing him to drop to the ground. Ochako gave a startled cry as she darted to catch Izuku while Himiko's eyes went wide. Don't breathe it. It's a knockout gas. Having Sato's hand in his face, that gas had been forced into Izuku's lungs through his nose and mouth. He blacked out instantly. The two officers were too distracted to do anything as the gas hit them too, knocking them out cold. The gas kept spreading, hitting everyone around, even as more officers reacted to push the crowd back. Aizawa's eyes flashed red as he tried to erase Sato's quirk. The gas stopped hissing from his body, but the clouds still lingered in the air, only getting dispersed by the light breeze. With people falling around him, Saito seethed as he reached down and ripped a gun from one of the police officers' belts. Die! Saito leveled the gun at Himiko, while she did nothing. She looked at it, and stood completely still. Bang! The shot ripped through the air, sending people that weren't knocked out diving for the ground screaming. Midnight dove and tackled Himiko to the ground, the shot missing them both. Bang! 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 Midnight tensed as she clutched Himiko to herself, but the pain of getting shot never hit her. Saito had unloaded the gun, so she expected to be hit. A quick check showed that neither she nor Himiko was shot. Looking over her shoulder, Midnight saw All Might standing over Saito, hand covering the barrel of the gun, whiffs of smoke escaping from between his fingers. Saito pulled fruitlessly against All Might's grip, yelling that he shouldn't be trying to stop him. That this was Himiko's fault, and those stupid friends of hers. It's their fault they got hurt. Not his. Then someone screamed. It wasn't a scream of terror from the crowd. Nor was it from Saito. This was rage, the scream of an attack. Ochako rushed for Saito, eyes burning with anger. She had just watched this boy hurt Izuku, leaving him sprawled on the ground motionless, hacking and coughing up the gas forced into his lungs. Then Saito had tried to shoot Himiko, who was still alive thanks to Midnight pulling her away. Ochako was not going to give him another chance to hurt anyone else. It hadn't even registered that Saito was in All Might's custody. All she knew at that point was that she was going to beat the living shit out of him. Ochako, however, was stopped in her tracks as she was wrapped up in Aizawa's binding cloth, whwa? She pulled against the capture weapon, Saito within arm's reach. Close enough that she could crush his head with her hands, Uraraka. Ochako turned, ready to rip into her teacher for stopping her. After what this boy had done, she was going to. Don't make me waste time telling you what you should be doing right now. Aizawa's red glowing eyes were not focused on her, but on Saito. We'll handle this. Understand. Ochako blinked, then the red haze cleared, and she immediately stopped fighting against her teacher. Twisting around, she floated Izuku and held him under her arm. She rushed over to Midnight, who passed an unresponsive Himiko to her. Go. Floating Himiko as well, Ochako bounded away and leapt into the UA grounds. With the three now out of harm's way, Midnight hurried over to All Might's side, tearing a small slit in her costume and letting her quirk put Saito to sleep. Fakes, you're all fakes, like Stain, sigh. With Saito asleep, Aizawa closed his eyes while All Might let Midnight take the boy from him. Keeping the gun, All Might looked down at his hand, which held the fired bullets. It was terrifying how bad things had gotten. And judging from the noises coming from the school, things weren't going to be getting any better anytime soon. He wanted to go to check on Izuku immediately, but he had to hope Ochako would be able to get him help while he dealt with the mess outside. All around, people were strewn about, some knocked out, some dazed and sick, by Saito's quirk. With Saito handed to Midnight, he and Aizawa began to try and get the mess organized and to have medical help called in. The moment things had gone south, Slindingo had grabbed Chitos and had rushed her into their car. Slamming on the gas, he was putting as much distance between them and the mess as he could. One glance over at Chitos, and he knew that he'd better keep his mouth shut. Questions like, "Do you think Midoriya's son is dead?" would probably get him turned into a bomb. So he kept quiet. Chitos was pale. She had been all smiles when All Might had been getting questioned. She had cheered her reporter on as she began to lay out, plain as day, the corrupt nature of the Hero Safety Commission, laying the groundwork for distrust to grow. The evidence was obvious and now getting spread to every person watching the scene. And it would spread far beyond that. At least that was the plan. All Might had begun to fight back and turned the crowd against her reporter, so she had tried to shift the focus. Unfortunately, she had shifted it to a disaster. Saito had lost his mind and attacked, using his quirk to hurt not only the crowd but Izuku of all people. Chitos had screamed in horror when Seisho had blasted Izuku with a face full of that gas of his. Then as she was getting thrown into the car, they heard the gunshots. Chitos screamed, and pounded the dashboard of the car. What the hell was that boy thinking? Saito was supposed to cause a scene, not create a massacre. Chitos's plan was undone. Her goal to expose the Hero Safety Commission by using Saito and Himiko was in tatters. Things couldn't possibly get any worse. Then her phone rang. She didn't want to answer it. She also didn't even want to see who was calling her. She looked anyway and almost started to cry. Putting the phone to her ear, she answered in a shaky voice, "Redestro, sir, I." She winced. She winced again, then frowned. Then sneered. Slidingo could hear someone screaming. It wasn't their leader at least, but whoever it was with him on the line was clearly livid. "I'm not responsible for your son's actions." "If he had." "Sir, I was only trying to." Chitose closed her eyes and nodded, "Yes, sir." "Right away." The phone in Chitose's hand almost cracked from how hard she hung up. Daika City. Now. Go drove as fast as he could. When Ochako ran into the school building, she had hoped she would have a chance to figure things out. Izuku was out cold, and his breathing was labored. She was sure at a minimum he needed an oxygen mask, as she recalled some lessons in medical rescue treatments from 13. So she wanted to get him to Recovery Girl. But there was also Himiko to consider. Once Ochako had grabbed her, the girl had gone limp, hardly reacting to anything at all. Ochako had to check to make sure she also wasn't under the effects of Sato's quirk. Get Izuku to Recovery Girl and Himiko to her room. That was the plan Ochako had come up with as she ran through the halls. Then she hit a wall of people, and her plan quickly fell apart. The hall was filled with students. While not in a mad panic like last time, they were agitated, yelling over each other for information and news. Some were scared, while others seemed angry. Not a crowd Ochako wanted to deal with. Before she could turn and try not to be noticed, Ochako gasped when someone started tugging Himiko away from her. "It's here! The killer girl! She's here!" The crowd turned its eyes towards Ochako, and the opening she had come through closed up. Angry students converged on her. "Crap, crap, crap! Let her go!" Whoever was pulling on Himiko's leg screamed, "We want answers!" Hands reached out to rip Himiko from Ochako's arm. Angry hands. The crowd, seeing Himiko had changed from a group of students, scared, angry, and confused, into a lynch mob. They wanted the reason for their anger and fear handed over to them, or they were going to take it. That desire for answers by any means spread over them. Before, during the first day of school, panic had turned them against each other, now they had turned on Himiko. And if they got their hands on her while they were like this? Ochako grit her teeth, "Yeah, fuck this." Ochako drove her foot back into the person pulling Himiko away. While her heel sunk into someone's stomach, Ochako carefully so she didn't drop Izuku, floated herself, and using the unlucky student as a springboard, launched herself up into the air. Hitting the ceiling, Ochako tried to focus on the path ahead of her and kicked off, sailing over the heads of the crowd. Leaping from wall to wall, Ochako flew down the hall, twisting and turning as best she could to avoid hands that reached up to try and grab her. Toga's room is way too far. And ACK. A hand grazed her leg, so she kicked it away. "I'm not going to make it to Recovery Girls Clinic either. I need to find somewhere safe that can dash. 1A. Get to class. It's close, and if Yayorozu was there, she should be able to make something to help Deku." Her plan was decided, and making sure both Izuku and Himiko were secured under her arms, Ochako sailed through the hall, doing her best to keep as close to the ceiling as she could. And away from the students. As she moved down the hall, and away from the initial angry crowd, less and less people tried to stop her. For the most part, at least. Anyone that saw her and who she was carrying was too shocked to react in time to try anything. But a few still tried, and if she had to guess, their quick reaction time meant they were hero students. Ochako hoped she didn't run into a group of those anytime soon. When she rounded a corner and had one of his giant doors in sight, her hopes were dashed. An angry crowd was bunched up around the door, and Ochako saw many members of 1B, pretty much the whole class. No one was trying to force the doors open, yet, and as Ochako sailed over, a few scorch marks on the wall and floor near the closest one, seemed to imply that either they had started to and were stopped or someone in the class sent out a warning shot. "Hey, is that? Fuck!" Grabbing the door, Ochako slammed it open. She was startled to find some of her classmates filling the whole door frame with rows of metal plates that were almost 3/4 of the way up to the top of the frame. Same as with the other door on the other end of the class. They blinked up at her, and she blinked down at them. Then someone yelled as they blasted themselves up to the top layer of the barrier, "You fucking extras actually opened the door? Now I'm blowing all you up." fucking die-bast dash. Whoa, whoa. Ijiru screamed, it's Uraraka. Ah. Katsuki sneered as he held onto the top metal plate, I see who it is, shitty hair. Katsuki reached up and yanked Ochako inside before sneering down at the students below, stay the fuck out. And slammed the door shut. Setting Himiko down, Ochako laid Izuku on the floor and looked over at Momo, Deku needs an oxygen mask. Can you make one? Yes, of course, Momo said as she hurried to Izuku's side. Ochako noticed that Momo seemed to give Himiko a wide berth as she came over. Behind her, Mei followed close behind to lend a hand. Hatsum? Was with everyone in the principal's office when the news hit. Decided to follow everyone as they came back to class. Mei at least sounded like herself, though she was clearly worried about Izuku. Kneeling down, she helped Momo put the mask over his mouth and nose. With Izuku now getting tended to, Ochako thought she would have a chance to breathe, but the air inside the room felt wrong. Eyes were on her. The room was filled with worry and uncertainty, fear, and from some, anger. Ochako's eyes found Tenya as he helped finish the barriers over the doors and windows that faced the hallway. He nodded solemnly, guessing at Ochako's unasked question, with everything going on the news. Todoroki and I dash. Oi! Bun bitch! Katsuki growled as he stomped towards the corner Himiko had moved herself to, you need to start explaining this shit show right now. Ochako leaped over a desk to put herself between Katsuki and Himiko. Bakugou, Ochako seethed. Don't! Ijiru moved to keep the two separated, let's just stay calm, everyone. Mina crossed her arms, calm? Half the school is threatening to break into our class because they think we know something. Now that Mina's eyes darted at Himiko, here you can bet everyone is going to try. Ashido, Denki frowned, you don't have to say it like that. What is she supposed to say? Kyuka yelled, we can't just pretend that things aren't going crazy because of Toga. Mashireo pointed out the window, Toga hasn't done anything to us. It's the press and that boy that have caused this issue. The boy that Ida said she cut open, Fumikage swiftly put a hand over his shadow's beak, dark shadow. Shudo frowned, as we explained dash. We heard you the first time half and half, Katsuki growled, quirk starvation and all that shit. I want to hear what Katsuki pointed a finger at Himiko, has to say. Not interested in second-hand secrets. Tenya finished putting on the last barrier panel, everything we told you was the truth, Bakugou. You all were about to learn about it this morning. Denki blinked a few times, wait, is this what we were going to have to sign those NDAs for? A lot of the class turned to look at Denki. Kyuka rubbed her brow, wow. Tsuya stepped by Katsuki and walked over towards Himiko. Tenya and Todoroki said that Toga had done she frowned and picked her words carefully, some bad things. But the news, that's Saito. The way they're talking. Hitoshi finished, it sounds a lot worse than what we were told. Bang! A metal clang echoed in the room. Rikidu sighed, looks like we got that thing put up in time. Katsuki growled, fucking extras opened the door. Bang! Bang! Hanta laughed nervously, they must be pissed. You don't think they can get in, do you? Mei, from her spot next to Izuku, looked around then back at Himiko. Turning back to the class, she pointed at her and asked, wait? What are we surprised about again? The killing stuff? Denki shifted nervously, yeah. Wait? It wasn't obvious that Toga has killed like lots of people before? The whole support department has a bet going on if it over or under 50 people. The whole class froze and looked at Mei in shock. Katsuki's brow scrunched up as he groaned in annoyance, the fuck is wrong with you people? Ochako, momentarily shaken from her crisis mode, looked at Mei, wait, you all knew? Yeah. But the way you guys were acting with Toga yesterday? It's like... Oh, that? No one cares. We know she'd never do anything to us. Come again? Mina said, head tilted to the side. It's not like the teachers would let her be armed and walk around if they actually thought she was going to hurt someone. right? For a few seconds, no one had an answer for that. A few looked guilty at Himiko. Others still didn't seem convinced yet, still needing to hear some explanations. At least, to Ochako's relief, no one was about to hurt Himiko to get them. People outside the class, however, seemed to be another story. The banging on the now reinforced door was getting louder. The people outside were still trying to get in, and there were students with quirks that could get through the barrier Momo had set up over the door. Ochako scanned the room. Izuku was still unconscious, an oxygen mask covering his face as Momo and Mei tried to help resuscitate him. Himiko was still lost in her own world, sitting in a corner. Metal screeched against metal, making everyone look at the door. Get out here 1A and explain yourselves now. Send the killer out. We want answers. Ijiru frowned, they're really trying to get through. Those sounded like some of the guys from 1B, Mina said. Ochako began to quickly run through the quirks she could remember. Razor sharp, steel, softening were some of the first that popped into her mind. Those would tear through the door. They were under attack now, and she was not going to wait around and be caught off guard. Yayarozu, make me a crowbar. Ochako ordered, her voice flat and commanding. A few heads snapped up. Katsuki was eyeing her carefully. Momo, startled at the request, made the item instantly, only after it was finished and Ochako grabbed it did she ask, Uraraka, what are you dash? Crack. Walking up to the wall where the class costumes and gear were stored, Ochako slammed the bar into the wall, and began to force the compartment open. Gears groaned as they were forced open, but Ochako kept working at it. When she got it pulled out enough with the bar, she dropped it to her side and gripped the shelf, yanked it open the rest of the way. Uraraka? What are you dash? Ochako grabbed her costume case and pulled out her bracers. As she began to load them with the rubber bullets, Ochako looked at her classmates and answered coldly, if they break through, I'm going to be ready for them. Tenya stepped forward, arms chopping the air like he had engines in his hands. We are not going to attack our fellow students. I'm willing to overlook your blatant damage of school property, but this? I will not let you cross this line. Ochako's hand whipped up, pointing at the door, look at what we're dealing with. You expect me to do nothing when they're literally banging at our door? Turu's uniform twisted around nervously, they do sound like they're getting angrier. If this keeps going. There are plenty of people in 1B that can tear that barrier down. And what if it's not just them? What if any of our seniors decide to join them? Denki rubbed his hands together, I could do what I said before and dash. Momo shook her head, Ida, as the class representative, and I, as his vice, told you not to electrify the barrier. Them hitting it is no cause to electrocute them. They tried to rip Toga out of my arms, Ochako stated. A few heads turned to look at her. Some shocked. Some angry. A few looked over at Toga with sad unsure frowns. Toga's in shock after seeing that. Ochako almost said psychopath, but held her tongue, that old classmate of hers. Then to have all those reporters around, she can't defend herself right now. If they get their hands on her now, Ochako recalled the anger and panic of the crowd she had flown over. She didn't want to think about what they could do in their state. Shudo glanced at Himiko, you're worried about what they'll do to her. We also have to consider what could happen if she snaps at the threat. That was not a pretty thought. The frown that Ochako shot Shudo made it clear she didn't like that line of thinking, but as untasteful as it was, he had a point. The class recalled what she had done to the villains at USJ. Minoru recalled the X-Acto hobby knife she had in her hand after he had been caught trying to peek in the girls' locker room. If Himiko was still armed like that, things could get bad. I brought Toga here so she'd be safe from this until the teachers get things back under control. Ochako eyed her classmates. Classmates were 1A. After fighting back against the league, I thought we were more than just a class now. We're supposed to have each other's backs, right? I get that you all have questions, and the way you learned about this isn't fair to you or Toga, but right now, I'm asking you to help me protect the Toga you know. The Toga you've gone to class with. The one that sat here every day with us. If they decide to break through, will you help me? Suyu walked over to Ochako. Toga saved my life. Tsuyu picked her next words carefully, I'm uncomfortable with everything. I honestly don't know what to think of it. But if she was going to tell us, and the teachers were going to tell us, then I think they still deserved the chance before we come to a decision. Until then, I won't let anyone hurt her. Katsuki grumbled, watching the door, hands popping and sizzling. Ochako took that as at least he was going to focus on the external threat for now. Tenya adjusted his glasses, we are doing what we can, Uraraka. But if we cross this line, there could be consequences. Both he and Ochako looked at each other, recalling the events after their fight with Stain. You're ready to fight for your friends. It's admirable, heroic, but please consider what might happen after. Ochako rubbed her bracers, her recent training with Miruko telling her she was right to take the fight against the threat. But would she attack students? Ochako remembered the last time she had been hasty like this, leading to a fight with Himiko where she had crossed a line with the things she had said. Maybe she did need to take a breath and trust that the teachers would. There was a sudden movement from the back of the room. The wall slid open, making a doorway that hadn't been there before, and someone leaped through the opening. I am here, coming through the back door. Bang! Ochako, startled that someone was suddenly jumping into their classroom, whirled around, raised her bracer up and fired a rubber bullet. Pop! Hitting All Might square in the face. The great hero's head snapped back, and he fell to the ground. Everyone in the room stared at All Might's still form, then snapped their heads over at Ochako. Did you just kill All Might? With an overly dramatic flourish, All Might immediately leaped up, have no fear, not the first time I've been shot in the face. Though, All Might thought, what exactly shot me? Did young Yayorozu make something? Looks like she made a barrier for the doors. Hatsum is here, an invention? No, nothing I can see. Oh. All Might's eyes found Ochako, bracers still raised. He looked at her, then over at the forced open shelves that housed the students' gear, young Uraraka. I'm not letting any of my friends get hurt. Ochako rebuffed All Might, not even needing to hear him say anything. And no one will, because I am here. Now please, young Uraraka, All Might held out his hand. Ochako looked at them, before slowly taking her bracers and handing them over, thank you. All Might looked around and found Himiko, though not alone. Tsuyu, Shudo and Mina had taken up spots around her. There was a gap between them, but All Might got the feeling it was to give the girl space as she was clearly still dealing with her own emotions and demons over the horrible events and was not interested in people. He then looked for Izuku. After dealing with a large number of people and reporters outside that were having some very nasty side effects after breathing in the knockout gas from Saito, All Might had been very worried Izuku could be in worse shape. Finally finding him, All Might knelt down next to him as Momo continued to get him to breathe through the oxygen mask. How is he? Many of the people outside are in respiratory shock, and they didn't get a direct hit like young Midoriya did. He's breathing better now. Uraraka had me make an oxygen mask as soon as she got inside. All Might gave Ochako a nod of approval for her quick work. He was coughing a lot too, but it didn't look like gas. May cut in. Rubbing her chin, it looked like smoke. Maybe his fire breath burned up some of the gas in his lungs? Like an immune system attacking a virus. It was an interesting thought. All Might could see that Izuku was doing better than some of the others. Still, looking at Izuku, it seemed like he wasn't going to wake up anytime soon. He was still sickly looking, and his breathing was strained. Probably best to get Recovery Girl here as soon as possible. I fucking swear, Deku gets his shit kicked in every other week, Katsuki grumbled. Denki frowned, dude, you saw the live feed along with us. None of us expected that guy to pull a stunt like that. Midoriya wasn't looking for a fight. It's not fair to blame him for this. Growling, Katsuki flipped Denki off, but the other boy didn't care. The fuck's going on outside anyway? And how the fuck did you get in? Emergency back door, All Might pointed to the opening in the back wall, installed in case of emergencies. All Might then gulped when quite a few students looked very angry. possibly because they had assumed they were stuck in the class and were only now learning about these exits. Your homeroom teacher or whoever was on duty is supposed to lead you to them in case you needed to leave the class. Since they cut through parts of the school, better that only faculty know about them. Lest you all think to use them for mischief. Seriously? All Might coughed into his hand. Back in my day, students would love these for pranks. Senior prank day especially. So at some point, it was decided that only the teachers would know about them. When his explanation didn't really seem to please everyone, All Might moved to change the topic. As for outside, the teachers and officers have restored order. Medical personnel are on site, treating everyone that was affected by that gas. Ijiru held up his phone, a news broadcast that still had the headline "Serial Killer at UA" on it. And what about this? All Might frowned. First we deal with the medical crisis, then the unrest here, and then everything else. My parents keep texting me wanting to know what's going on, Turo said. Same. Yeah, they're kinda freaked. I imagine. There might be a parent-teacher meeting in the near future. But that's then, and we must take care of now. There is a building to get back under control. Speaking of that, Kyuka said, pointing at the barricaded side of the room, is it just me, or did all the banging and yelling stop? One by one, everyone in the class turned to look at the barricades and listened. Sure enough, there was no longer any indication that anyone was trying to break in. Zero slowly crept over to the wall and put his ear to it. Maybe it's finally SA. Then a face popped through the metal barrier. Hello there, you ace troublemakers. Ah. Zero's eye rolled up as he fell to the ground, mumbling something about ghosts. Mirio looked down at the twitching tape boy. Is he going to be okay? Katsuki charged forward, hands popping and sizzling as he leveled them at Mirio's face, though the other boy didn't seem bothered at all. You got exactly 1 second to tell me who the fuck you are, then I'll blow you the fuck up. Don't you mean, or I'll blow you the fuck up, was the collective thoughts of the class. Young Bakugou. Hold on. All Might called out, no explosions inside. Stuffing his hands back into his pockets, Katsuki walked away while All Might walked over to Mirio. Young Tagada. Would you have something to do with the rowdiness outside quieting down? Mirio nodded, yes sir. 3A and 3B have been helping teachers get things back under control. We just got the students here lead back to their classes. Around the room, there was a deep sigh of relief. I'd also like to deliver a message from Principal Nizu. He wanted to inform you that he, Eraserhead, Midnight, and Recovery Girl will be heading this way soon, so he wants everyone to stay put. Recovery Girl's been going around helping with the cleanup outside, but she saw what happened to Midoriya and wants to be sure he's okay. Ochako leaned against a desk, taking a deep breath as it seemed at least for now, things were going to calm down. Recovery Girl coming to help Izuku was a huge load off her shoulders. But if they were all coming here, then that probably meant that the class was going to get told the full story about Himiko. She just hoped things stayed calm then. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 38. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.